Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very glad to conclude the first day of this InfraWeek 2019. We are proud of the repeated success of this event here. Paris plays a key role in infrastructure financing, which is key for the future of our societies. And I'm sure that you have shared that point altogether all this day. On behalf of the French government, I would like to welcome all participants and foreign delegations, especially from Saudi Arabia, Croatia, Kenya and Morocco, from the European Commission and participants coming from all over the world. I would like to emphasize first that there is a growing need for sustainable infrastructure all over the world. The demand of infrastructure is strong for at least three main reasons. First, because infrastructure is key for economic growth and social development. The need for infrastructures is very much concentrated in emerging countries where urban congestion, lack of clean water, waste management are still undermining life quality of large numbers of inhabitants. In the meantime, developing and emerging countries bear a high country risk which tends to increase the cost of access to capital sometimes. Infrastructure are a core aspect of development. We know that for sure. Closing this infrastructure gap is therefore essential. Yet, infrastructure need is not only an issue in emerging countries. First, because economic growth requires adapting and developing new infrastructure, even if existing networks are already comprehensive. In the Paris region, for instance, we are building a brand new railway network which will connect the suburban areas of the region, and we know we need it. With more than 35 billion investments, the so-called Grand Paris project will be one of the more ambitious urban railway projects in our country. Another example is the connection between Charles de Gaulle Airport and the center of Paris. We are building in the context of the 2024 Olympic Games. The second reason is that in developed countries, like here in Europe, there is a huge challenge in maintaining existing infrastructure. In France, we began building modern transport infrastructure in the 19th century, and we built most of our transport infrastructure in the 60s and the 70s. Well, we can be proud of our road and railway networks, which is supposed to be one of the best in the world, but to be clear, some parts of them need to be renovated. We need to upgrade our local trains, which are sometimes outdated and do not always fit to passengers' expectations. That is why in 2017, President Macron made an unprecedented commitment to invest more in the maintenance of daily life infrastructure rather than in building new infrastructure. The third reason is that we need infrastructure to build a greener, more sustainable growth path. We need more renewable energies, solar plants, wind farms. We need recycling facilities to retreat waste. We need more clean transport solutions to curb urban pollution. Let's be honest. We took bold commitments at the Paris Agreement in 2015 to limit global warming to 2 degrees. France decided to diminish by 75% its CO2 emission by 2050. We won't meet these commitments without a huge investment in infrastructure, which will help building a carbon-neutral society. So as you see, there are need for infrastructure in most countries, no matter their level of development. The OECD estimates the minimal needs for infrastructure financing to more than $6,000 billion for the period between 2016 and 2030. And the additional cost for building climate-resilient infrastructure is estimated at $700 billion. It means a very significant financial effort for all nations, but 11% of additional cost, this is nothing compared to the threat of climate change. So as you see, our infrastructure needs are significant, and failing to meet those targets would have significant consequences on populations and climate change. So my second point would be meeting our objectives required a well-defined public infrastructure policy. In the face of the emergency and given the current fiscal constraint, public funds are scarce to meet all needs and finance the transition. Governments should establish good practices first and select a pipeline of valuable projects to give investors more viability. In France, the Mobility Orientation Bill currently being discussed in Parliament establishes an infrastructure programming for transport and mobility for the period 2018 to 2027, including financing provisions. It will give a clear priority to daily transport infrastructure, maintenance, and retrofitting of existing networks. The programming has built on a comprehensive review of all the main transport projects, an unprecedented exercise in France, which made it possible to build a pipeline of infrastructure projects which will soon be approved by the Parliament. Public authorities can play a decisive role in selecting the most value-creating projects. It implies a robust decision process to assess the socio-economic impact of the different projects at stake, and we obviously have to take into account the project's benefits for direct users. We also need to assess their alignment with our general public policy goals, reducing our environmental externalities, greenhouse gases, and air pollutants emissions. In France, since the adoption of the Public Finance Planning Act for 2012-2017, performing ex-ante assessments is a statutory requirement for all public non-military investment projects. Besides, beyond 100 million euros of public subsidies, the project sponsor must carry out an independent specific assessment overseen by the General Secretariat for Investment. A clear and transparent overview of the most beneficial investment projects gives a greater legitimacy to public investment decisions. It also gives private stakeholders a strong political signal. Last but not least, we need a strong cooperation and understanding between private and public stakeholders. Public-private cooperation first means an adequate risk sharing. Public funds will remain necessary for projects that are not bankable, while focusing the involvement of private actors on profitable projects. We also have a solid experience of public-private partnership, where private companies fully bear construction and maintenance risks. Let me give you an example. The new Paris courthouse, located in the Batignolles district, in the northern Paris area, was built under a public-private partnership. Such arrangements provide for better quality infrastructure, which are delivered at a faster pace and with limited risk of extra cost for public authorities. Finally, and that will be my last point, we need to enhance our cooperation on sustainable infrastructure at European and international level. It is of vital importance to build a common understanding at international level of what a sound public investment policy should be. Why? Because in most countries, public money is scarce. We should carefully design public infrastructure programs to give our taxpayers the best value for money. Because we all share common objectives to reduce greenhouse gas emission and protect our environment. Individual efforts will be even more powerful if we use coordinated tools. Because we are facing global challenges with cross-border implications, trade flows, human population displacement, biodiversity protection are issues without borders by definition. The One Belt, One Road project initiated by China demonstrates that cross-border infrastructure will be key to tackle these global challenges. We see a crucial need to get a common infrastructure policy at the European Union level. The EU should keep its full autonomy when designing future infrastructure. The Trans-European Transport Network policy has been a huge success. It will continue to support critical infrastructure such as the Lyon-Turin rail link project. The Juncker Plan, which was launched in 2015 to address the structural investment gap in Europe, will soon achieve its objective. It has already mobilized more than 420 billion euros of private and public investments across Europe. The target of 500 billion euros of investment is likely to be reached before the end of 2020. In France, the Juncker plan has supported a number of infrastructure projects, including very high-speed internet, energy efficiency, social housing, or infrastructure funds specialized in renewable energies, public works, or soil remediation. We expect the new Commission to go even further to support an ambitious EU investment policy for the coming years. The InvestEU programme, which will take over the Juncker plan, should carry on addressing the investment gap at the European level and boost public and private financing in infrastructure, but also in SMEs financing and human capital to increase EU's growth potential. Given the current economic situation in the EU, with slow growth and increasing risk due to the international situation, there is clearly a case for more investment at national level in some EU countries with sufficient fiscal space. We support a coordinated compact for growth with three priorities. First, continue to reduce high levels of public debt. Second, implement structural reforms. And three, use the fiscal space where available to boost investment, especially in infrastructure. Third, we need to create the conditions enabling European private investors to channel capital into sustainable investment projects. We are supporting the current discussion to create a taxonomy of environmentally sustainable assets at EU level, which should come to a conclusion soon, and forthcoming discussions on prudential requirement for insurance and bank, with the Solvency II review and the Basel III transposition next year, should create much stronger incentives for equity and infrastructure investment. There are room for improvement at the international level as well. We are strongly supportive of the G20 Infrastructure Working Group, which creates adapted tools and knowledge to bridge the infrastructure gap. The group can be praised for various achievements, the adoption in 2018 of a roadmap to infrastructure as an asset class, or new principle of quality for infrastructure investment in line with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and the SOURCE project, which is a multilateral platform for infrastructure projects dedicated to international community. We thank the Japanese presidency, which renewed the mandate of this group in 2019, and we are looking forward to continuing the work under the incoming presidency of Saudi Arabia. To conclude my speech and this long day, I want to stress again the importance of this event and to thank you for taking part in it. The most important challenges we have ahead of us, strengthening international trade and economic cooperation, going through the energy transition and protecting our environment, will require a shared understanding and common efforts to build high-quality infrastructure. France is determined to remain at the forefront of the infrastructure policy and to support the development of a vibrant private ecosystem in Paris for infrastructure building, management, and financing. It is essential that public and private sectors and that our different countries keep working together. The discussion held today have been extremely promising. I'm therefore very confident that you will all enjoy an excellent InfraWeek in Paris. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Minister. Thank you, Agnès, for this very strong speech and for your regular and very strong support to Paris Europlace. I want to thank the foreign delegations, Mr. Secretary of State of Croatia, our friends from Saudi Arabia, from Kenya, from Morocco, who have participated today. Thank to all our partners and sponsors. Thanks to our Paris Europlace team, Karim, Zinedine and Nadine, who have organized this event, and the team of the Ministry of the Economy. And just to conclude, remind you that you will get different events and compliments all this week. Tomorrow, Tuesday, with CMS and CMS Francis Lefebvre, Natixis in the afternoon, and Paris Europlace with Finance for Tomorrow. Wednesday, Paris Europlace and Auric, AFG, the French Investors Association, as well as the EDEC Business School Paris. Thursday, the Institut de la Gestion Déléguée, which is linked to the Ministry of Economy and Finance. And finally, on Friday, Ardian, to talk about investment funds. So welcome to all of you in Paris for this beautiful week. And we will see you again next year for our 4th edition, once again with Mrs. Minister. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.